even evident in the fact that we're having a webinar series, and this has become probably one of the most used words in recent times. Even many in recent times when some of the professional bodies like Chartered Institute of Personnel Management and a few others have tried to organize webinar series and all of that, the participation has always been low because people, in fact, many people would go to the physical space where the event is going on rather than to join online. So clearly, without doubt, today we can say that the current situation is that individuals are encouraged to be socially distanced so as not to contract the virus, and of course encouraged to keep personal hygiene so as to also reduce the possibility of infecting others. So without doubt, this is our current situation, but this is not necessarily the new normal because this is not the first time we're having a pandemic in the world. And this is not the first time. We are even at the scale, if we're looking at scale, the flu of 1918, we are told, killed more than 50 million people. Now, coronavirus is still on. It's not been controlled. But at the moment, the death toll is over 1 million. So in comparison, over 2 years, that killed more than 50 million people, 100 million, some people say. But at this time, what we are seeing with coronavirus is about 1 billion. But yet, we understand that it's a very deadly virus, highly contagious. So we expect that without doubt, the world will resume to a way of life that is not too far from what it used to be. Airlines are already traveling. People are using masks to travel. There are restrictions, no meals served on certain flights, etc. But all of these are what we can call the current situation. So if we want to talk about new normal, we need to actually understand what is going to be the new normal. Without doubt, nobody has a crystal ball as to what the new normal will be. But one thing is clear, whether we like it or not, the way we think, the way we act would have to change to adapt to that new normal, whatever it is. And so if we are going to be successful in the future, it then means that we have to create that future. Because if we don't create that future, whatever we get is what we are going to be adapting to. So what we are going to be talking about today is really how we can create that future ourselves to ensure that when that new normal, in quote, it arrives, it is actually what we have created by ourselves. So we are responding by ensuring that we create the future, we disrupt our own businesses today. If we don't disrupt our own businesses today, those businesses may not be there, tomorrow. But before we, begin to dig deeper, I'd like to say that one thing I've realized is that it is highly important for us to survive before we can grow. We have to survive first before we can flourish. And so some of the things we're going to be talking about are not just about survival, but steps also to how we can flourish in the businesses that we do. Now, because we invited very few people, for this webinar series, it's also going to be looking at broad areas of business, not specific areas, but in broad industries that can be applicable to any industry. And that's the idea that we have behind it. So it's not specific to any particular industry. There is nothing we're going to be talking about today that is not applicable to any industry. Now, this is our understanding of what the future will be. And the future is here. It's just about how do we create it in our own space. So when everybody talks about the new normal is not really about masks or about social distancing or about Zoom, which we are using. It's really about technology, you know, how technology is going to shape the world, and is already shaping it. So the new normal is the interaction between man and machine. The new normal is digital transformation, no longer enabling, no longer just using technology as an enabler, but using technology to transform, not only to enable what we are currently doing, because for instance, you can send an email with PDF and ask somebody to fill that form. You could even make that form a PDF filler, in which case the person filling it is filling it directly on that PDF. But it doesn't mean that there is intelligence in that system, because you may still have to then download that form and print it out, or not, even if you don't print it out, you may still have to be looking at it on the system to analyze it. But the future is really about the interaction of man and machine, where artificial intelligence is going to be helping to do a lot of things. And so for us as business owners, how do we begin to look at this, even if we do not have the resources to invest, even if we do not have the resources to invest heavily in artificial intelligence, which it would not make economic sense for us to do, how can we take advantage of what exists now to improve our own businesses? So today's focus is strictly on understanding the cost element of our business and how do we reduce it. And we're going to be talking about things that we can really just, after this session, begin to do directly on our own, or with help from different people or organizations that we may identify to be proficient in helping us to do them. So before we go in, again, the difference between the current situation and the new normal is that the current situation is just purely reacting to what is going on, and we are doing things to contain the virus. So we are not going out there to meet with people. We are holding our meetings online and all of those things. Those are what we call reactions to a situation. But what's going to happen, and that will become a new normal, is that people will then use advantage of technology to begin to do things in a transformational way, rather than just using technology to enable their business. Now, how do we actually get to do this? And I hope that we'll be able to put this into practice even in this session today. The real first thing, if we are going to be able to address cost, is to understand what generates revenue in our business. And many of us really, we know that because we see the financial statement. But when you look at it, it's about asking, what moves the car? The tire, without the tire, the vehicle can't move. Without even, maybe if it's a vehicle that uses spark plug, it can't move. Without, so all the elements will become important, so to say, in the real sense. But at the end of the day, if we step back to say, what truly moves the car? And what are the things that are not, even though they are necessary and important, but I can manage, or I can use certain mechanisms to address them. And then we might even realize that, look, it's not really about the car, it's about the movement. So if I can get myself from point A to B, maybe I really shouldn't be asking the question about what moves the car in the first instance. So the first thing we'd have to do is to really look at the current value system of our business and ask, where are the points where money comes in, before we can actually talk about it. And I'll give the example of our own business here. We're an outsourcing company, but the true point of it is that money doesn't come into this business from anything we do here. Everything we do here is cost. Money comes into this business from the staff that we have outsourced. we are an outsourcing company, we are personnel and business process outsourcing company. So if we have 200 staff in our head office, it does not, or in our 18 offices or 20 offices nationwide, money doesn't come in from there. Money comes in from every single staff that has been deployed to another client or to a client. And understanding that then means that we know that those are the most important elements of our business, and every other thing behind this is cost, and therefore what can we do, to address this cost? So you really need to know that about your business. If you are selling generators, as an example, or if you are a contractor, buildings and all of that, where does the money come from? So the second thing is really being able to identify every activity into these 6 boxes.
Okay, I'll just take this one. You have it. Yes, definitely.
We must be able to identify our business in these 6 boxes. Item 2, you must be able to say, these 6, I understand them fully and I know what they are, because that's truly where we will be able to get the result. We must know in our business, if our operating expense is 50 million or 5 billion, we must, even though it is not a requirement of reporting, of financial reporting, no accountant prepares books of accounts in this manner. But as business owners, and that's why we said that this session is strictly for business owners and chief executives, director of boards of small and medium scale businesses, like ourselves. But every business owner must be able to answer these questions, 6 of them. What are the direct costs of your business? You must know. What are the indirect costs? What are the primary fixed costs? And we're going to take examples today because that's where we're going to knock things down. What are the non-primary fixed costs? What are the avoidable indirect costs? And what are the unavoidable indirect costs? Every business, whether you're a consulting or you are a service company, or you are a manufacturing company, or you are a trading company, irrespective of the line of business you are, your cost you must be able to break it down into these 6. And once you have been able to break it down into these 6, then the journey to cost reduction becomes clear. And you will then be able to do cost reduction without hurting your business in any way, because you would not be removing fat, you'll not be removing bone, you'll just simply be removing the burden, and yet you still get the service. Now, let me say that again. When we say you are reducing cost, what people typically think of is that you are foregoing something. No, what I'm saying here is that you are not going to forego anything. You are going to retain every value in your business, but you are going to spend less. And I'm going to demonstrate that to you today with about 10 examples, other case studies. So once you understand this, and nobody can do this for you, really. It's not a function of, I'm going to call KPMG or somebody, because it's really about you understanding the business clearly and being able to know that this is a direct cost. So for us, for instance, as an outsourcing company, what we do is human resource outsourcing and business process outsourcing. And you permit me, I'm going to be using examples of our own business because I'm very familiar with it, and I'll be inviting you to think about it in your own business and say, where are these opportunities? So for us here, there's only one direct cost. Every other thing is totally indirect. And for us, the only direct cost we have in this business is the salary of the staff that is outsourced to our clients. So if we have 10,000 staff out there or 20,000 staff out there working for different clients, the only thing that is direct cost to our business is really that goes to that staff. Every other thing goes to either indirect, primary fixed, or non-primary, avoidable or unavoidable. And we're going to, use examples of some of those in this conversation. Now, the third thing we have to do, once we have done the second thing, is to then look at the canvas and say, based on the canvas that we have painted in number 2, what are the things that we would easily eliminate while retaining the value that they offer? So it's not substitution. We're actually taking out the cost and we are retaining the benefit. And that sounds like magical, but it's just the truth. So once you know that you are not losing benefits, you are only simply saving the cost, it becomes easier to think about it. So what I can assure you is that some of the tips that we're going to be sharing would not lead to you losing any benefit, but it will mean that you can, in all honesty, reduce your cost of achieving those benefits. So let's take examples. We're going to use examples in 10 areas, and I hope that these examples will demonstrate to you clearly. And the way we're going to talk about the examples, like I said earlier, is based on what we know, is proven to have worked and is working and will work into the future. And why is it so important? Because the future is here, and the future is about the interaction of man and machine. Example 1, human resources. Now, a lot of times, when people hear about cost reduction, they simply think it's about, you can take out this staff and take out that staff. That's not the whole essence of cost reduction when we talk about human resources. You can keep the same number of staff, you can pay exactly the same salary as an example, but how can you get reduction even from that? And there are many avenues, and we're going to discuss some of them. So for instance, if you have been able to identify the work and you have been able to break down the cost into those 6 elements, as we have discussed earlier, you would immediately realize that there is a whole lot of burden that you carry as a business owner and cost that you have that is really not on the table at the end of every month when you are paying salaries. And sometimes does not come on the table until 4 or 5 years after. So let's give an example of those costs. If you have been fully compliant in your business, you will realize that you would receive sometimes audit notification from Board of Internal Revenues. You will receive audit notification from PENCOM. And of course, they will come for those audits. You may receive audits from the NSITF that is administering the ECA, the Employee Compensation Scheme. You may also receive audit from ITF. You may not, but there's also the statute of limitation. The law is there, so it doesn't change. Even if they don't come today, they may come tomorrow. So, and that is a burden on business and is a threat to businesses sometimes because of the cost of this compliance. So how can you then have the same workforce that you have today and reduce all of those exposures completely? And the answer is simple. Staff augmentation, as an example, in which case your staff is your staff, but you enter into an agreement with a professional service firm who then does what you can call HR process outsourcing for you. All the staff are still yours. They are carrying your ID card. You have not laid off anybody, but 100% of the burden that comes. So I'll give an example. We work for many institutions, many large corporations and small businesses also. If one of our, okay, so take example of well, I'm not going to mention names of clients, but they simply just get the letter from those agencies and they say, oh, sorry, this process is been outsourced completely. So even if you are asking us for 300 million or 30 million or 2 million as demand liability for our human resources because you think our taxes are incomplete or one thing or the other, it's not a problem. But this is our contract. This liability does not belong to us. It belongs to the professional service firm that is doing this HR process outsourcing for us and is taking full responsibility for any shortcomings. And that contract is binding. And the law is also clear on those situations. So what then does that mean to you as a business? It means that you have been able to determine and ensure that your HR cost stays within what it is, the salary of your staff, and that is it. Apologies. So basically, the situation is not that you are taking your staff out, but you reduce your cost fully by ensuring that you do not have any exposure to any government agency or even to your staff. Because staff sometimes would go under different situations and they will make demands on you as an employer. So just that alone, you retain the benefit of the work of your staff 100%. Your staff are not outsourced. Or if you want to go to the extreme of it, you actually outsource certain functions that you determine to be possible for you to outsource. And all the functions that you believe you cannot outsource, you retain those staff fully, but you can then outsource the HR process, in which case you determine your cost, it becomes known and becomes fixed. It doesn't change. So you are not exposed to any possibility of shortfall in any statutory or regulatory payment that is relating to employment. That's an example of how, from human resources, while still keeping exactly the same total number of staff, while still paying exactly the same salary, you actually do not have exposure to so many other factors that are usually undeterminable at the beginning. Now, another example is payroll administration or payroll management. Many organizations really, if you ask them, how does payroll management or payroll administration add value to your business? Because it is purely, in many developed worlds, they use what is called software as service. Software as service. You don't even see, you're not interacting with humans. It's just software as service. We have process centers processing several millions of transactions. We process about 2.5 million payroll in about 5 years. And I can tell you that all of the organizations who use those services never have anything to worry about in terms of payroll management and payroll administration. Because truly, if you think about it, payroll administration is a cost in your business, and it is a cost that you can immediately eliminate totally and eliminate all of the liabilities that come with it, even eliminate potential for fraud, and I'll tell you why. Because you will never buy a service that does not cover your risk. So you would even have that protection because you will have professional indemnity, and you would also have fidelity insurance that must be embedded into that kind of arrangement. So the question simply is, why should you as a business owner, whether, and now in this meeting, I'm talking to businesses that are doing less than 5 billion naira per annum. So if your business is doing more than that, maybe it might not necessarily, in any case, it's applicable to, because even the largest corporations in the world, the GMs and all of the largest corporations in the world use some of these techniques. And it's really mind-boggling why large corporations, there is no bank in Nigeria today, not one, that you go to, that you not find out that 70% of the staff of that bank are outsourced. That's HR, under the HR. They are still working, the institution is still getting the benefit. So the big is getting bigger and the small is being crushed. Why? Because we are not using the techniques that are available. The staff is still there, he's working, he earns a decent salary, he has progression, he has opportunity to grow and all of that. Why do they outsource? Because they transfer the burden and all the costs that you cannot determine upfront. They transfer it to a second service provider whose payment for that is what you can call like an insurance premium, is management fee. And because of his management fee, when you go into those contracts, you see that there is clear indemnity that has been provided. So the risk of the business has been transferred. Let's say you run a hotel and you have outsourced your staff to a company like ours. If your staff steals something there, you get it back because we are obligated to refund you because it's our staff. Yet it's providing the service in your company and you are getting the full benefit of it. So you do not carry that on determinable cost today. Now, in the area of payroll administration, it is mind-boggling how many companies globally actually use services for payroll administration. But here, we small businesses would think, oh, it's something I got to do by myself. So you layer up in terms of staff that should be there, but doing something else that actually can bring in money into the company is there doing something that doesn't bring anything in. And I can say it boldly because this is the business we do. Payroll administration does not bring any money into your business. It's just a cost that you can do away with by simply buying a payroll administration service that protects you fully and does not increase your cost. It doesn't increase your cost in any form, shape, or shade because it is proven that the cost of buying payroll administration is far lower than the cost of running payroll. Even the cost, not even the benefit now. Of course, the benefit of running payroll administration outweighs the benefit of doing it internally. That's also been proven. So the issue is, how do we reduce our costs? This is another example, by simply making sure that you do not layer yourself with a fixed cost that is not necessary in your business. Because even the largest corporations in the world do not do this internally. Now, the third one is accounting. Accounting is so critical and so crucial for your business. But there's a difference between bookkeeping and accounting. So what do you really need in your business? You need to determine that. Because at the end of the year, you are going to invite your auditors if you do. That's the external auditor for compliance. That's the statutory requirement. Who prepares your account? CAMA makes it the responsibility of directors. So directors don't. And if you go into all of the legislations, you're going to see that principal officers are the ones that actually face the penalties that are in there. So how can you reduce your cost with accounting? It is simply about ensuring that you have the right tools, you use the right tools, because when you use the right tools, then you can keep the better book of accounts. Now, right tools does not mean a particular software or the other. And it doesn't mean that you have to actually have the license of a particular software.
Music.
Can we please mute? Can we please mute if we're not? So, accounting is very straightforward. Can we please mute? So, that is another example of how we can, excuse me, please. That's another example of how we can reduce our cost. You do not, as a small business, medium scale business, even a business that is doing less than 200-300 million, possibly, it is not likely that you can or will be able to hire the right kind of accountant that you need in the business. And that's the truth. Because first and foremost is that, hey, let's be honest. A lot of businesses are not paying what I consider a living wage. Excuse me. You have an accountant that you are paying 70,000. You don't have an accountant. That's the truth. You have an accountant that you are paying 150,000. You don't really have an accountant. Let's be factual. So how can you use that same cost to make sure that you actually get the right level of accounting services that you need? We don't offer the service, so it's not like a sales pitch, but it's just the right thing to do. And if there are people who are, chartered accountants in this session, when we get to Q&A, it would be nice to hear their perspective on it. You truly can't afford, as a small business, if you are not doing 2-3 billion naira in sales, or at least 500 million naira in sales. The truth of the matter is the level of accountant that your business needs will is not necessarily beyond, but it's unreasonable in cost. So we typically end up with accounts clerk or people who even have accounting degrees, or even people that say they are chartered and possibly are chartered, but do not really have the charter. So how can you manage your cost in accounting services? You should consider buying accounting service just the same way you buy audit. Now, what does it mean when you buy accounting service? It means that you are actually buying from a professional service organization that has the competence, but because many people are buying from it, it lowers their cost. It does not take your staff away, because I know many times you are concerned about, we don't want people to lose their jobs. No, that's not what we are saying. People won't lose their jobs. Now, let's be careful and be mindful that irrespective of what we have been doing before now, because of this new normal, the FRS will be a lot more stringent on compliance, because the country is broke and the company needs money. And the only way they're going to get that money is through compliance. So if you have been under, you pay VAT, you just put them to, whatever it is, certain practices, they will eventually get to it, and those liabilities will come back home. So what is this? What is the way out? prevent future liabilities that can jeopardize all of the work that has gone into the business, and embrace using services that can enable the business. And what that means also is that that staff that is there that is doing the accounting work now then gets proper supervision from a proper organization, and you are paying less. Because at the end of the day, what you face when FRS is pushing you up and down is far less than paying 50,000 naira per month or 500,000 per annum as a fee to KPMG, or now it won't be the size of KPMG, but there are many proper accounting firms with chartered, and that will also build capacity for them. So you can reduce your cost significantly by also considering that option. Now, that makes three things we've talked about. The first is your human resources. You keep your staff, but you transfer all the burden and the liabilities associated with them, so you do not have anything that bothers you. LRS knocks your door. You say, yeah, thank you. These guys, they work here, yes, but this is the company that is responsible for their taxes, not us. You have nothing else to worry about. All of that is gone. Or you do payroll administration management, process that you've bought, which provides you the same thing. The difference just being that in this case, it's just dealing with the payroll management and administration, not the personnel, angle. So things like employee compensation and all of that. So if one of your staff is involved in an accident, the claims from employee compensation will still have to be through you. But whereas in the other one, it won't even be through you. The other, company would ensure that the NSITF does whatever it has to do. So these are three examples in practical terms. And what we have seen is that a lot of organizations actually, because you turn this into a fixed cost for you, you then know what you are facing and you don't have surprises. Now, the fourth area where you can save cost is marketing. There is a clear distinction between sales and marketing. But for the purpose of this, I'm just going to talk about sales and marketing into one bucket. And it's not surprising. If you just, at the end of this thing, just check it out in the internet, sales in terms of workforce in the world has the most. Because if you have, say for instance, 1,000 people in a factory manufacturing something, they are probably going to have 100,000 people selling it outside. So whether you call them distributor or retailer or this, sales has the most. Sales is what employs the most people in the world. For everything that is produced, many more people are selling. So what is your sales force? The size of your sales force will also determine, how well you can grow. And that's why when you look like businesses like Coca, I don't want to mention names, but if you look at certain businesses doing distribution and all of that, you're going to see large network of salespeople. That's what grows the business. So how can you have access to large network of salespeople? It cannot be by you building it internally, because the resources you have can definitely not be sufficient for you to build the large network of sales that you require. So the answer is as simple as ABC. Buy or rent. And it's available. Why should you have 4 people in sales when 1,000 people can be selling for you? Because it's a variable cost. When 1,000 people are selling for you, if 2% of them make sales, it is still more than the 2 or 4 people that you want to keep internally. So these are some of the ways that you can actually save cost and retain the benefit. Now you ask yourself, hey, how can I do this? In my industry, it doesn't work that way. No, it works that way everywhere. And that's the truth. Whether you run hotel or you run school and you're saying, how can I do this? It's the truth. it would be surprising to know that even the biggest corporations, even some people that are multimillionaires, they get paid for referrals. They get paid for referrals, and that's sales. So it's just about thinking through it and knowing, how can I translate? So if you run a school and every parent in that school knows that, oh, if you bring a child, if you introduce somebody to the school that enrolls in the school, you are able to get 3% discount or 4 or 2% or whatever it is. That's sales, and that can increase the number of pupils in the school to the capacity that you can take. So there are many avenues. Whether you're into construction, you're going to ask, how can I have more people in sales? I'm into construction. How do they go out? It's out there. So that makes 4 as an example of how we can reduce cost. If you ask yourself, the space that you use for your business, is it optimal? Do you truly need all of that space, or you even need more? That's another question. Because if we truly agree that in the new normal, artificial intelligence, machine interacting with man would matter, then the use of space will also become critical. So you really have to ask yourself, what is the size of the office that is required? And what will be the cost of that? Because then you save money. It's no longer, so Google, for instance, have come up with a policy that their staff are going to work, 50% of their workforce will work from home by 2021. That's next year. And you can Google it and you'll find it. So if 50% of workforce is working from home, let's be clear, 50% of the workforce will not need space in the office. So it means the campus size will not be as necessarily big as it used to be. It means that commercial real estate may not, need the kind of spaces that people are taking. If you have been familiar with banking, you know how many branches of banks have been closed lately. And that's going to continue, because now a lot of innovation is coming out. People are able to open accounts directly. We are reducing cash, so a lot of transfers. If you ask yourself truly in the last 1 year, or how much money have you touched in cash, and now compared to how much transaction have you done total, you'll probably be surprised that maybe the total cash you have handled in the last 1 year is less than 5% of the total transaction you have done. So clearly, space requirement becomes something critical. And you got to look into it and see how you can optimize your space to be able to save costs. Another thing is, oh, my business is too small, I don't need a call center. Who told you so? You do need, but you don't have to own it, because just Google it, you are going to see companies providing that service, and it's a variable cost. So your number is there, they are professionally trained, they answer the inquiries, they direct, they transfer to you. You do not have to answer every call and be unable to focus on getting the business done. And yet, it's variable cost. So if you buy space in a call center and your number is there, every call that comes for you, they've done the initial screening and all of that, the one that has to come to you is forwarded or something, you got to talk to them, and you're going to find out it's far cheaper than you actually being the call center of the business yourself. You receive all the calls. It's important, yes, but trust me, it works. And it's not going to cost you a fixed amount of money. There are many variable ways in which these contracts are structured, and you can. So if you receive 10 calls, you pay for 10 calls, or you receive 100 calls, or whatever it is. And that way, you actually are able to do your business with a lot more concentration, and you still do not lose anything because you are not losing any call. But more importantly is that you actually do not lose any call. Because today your phone can, your own battery can, the battery of your phone can be dead, you can lose a call. But this, it doesn't die. So even if you are afraid of competition and all of that, the first thing is we have to overcome fear. So if you use a proper call center, they will have all the things they have to do. When your calls come in, they take all the inquiries, they do what is called screening, you know. So when you are talking to somebody, you're able to know, oh, Mr. XYZ, he wants this kind of service, he needs this, he needs that, and you are talking to him afterwards because you are even now better prepared to have that conversation. And it doesn't cost you. So let's say you sell generators. You are going to be sending out, you know, information you want people to buy from you and all of that. You should be able to send it to several thousands of people, and if calls are coming in, it should not weigh you down. And the only way that's going to happen is if you use this kind of professional service. Now, what we are preaching here is very simple. The capacity for small businesses to own all of the functions that they need is not there, and don't let's pretend it's not there. So what is the best approach to it? Buy or rent the ones that will retain the benefits that you need while making your cost fixed. So you know this is how much I pay, but it's fixed but variable. So let's say you buy payroll management services. You know that you are paying 50,000 naira per month to the company that is offering it to you. That's 600,000 naira. But you know that nobody is coming to you from LRS or from FRS. Nobody, you have no further liability to any government. You know that for sure. And then you know that for sure that you do not need the staff to do payroll. So you are not having the cost of that staff. So that staff becomes available for value-adding business in your business. Even if it is for him to go out there and start knocking on doors and telling people what you do, helping to increase the brand equity. Even if that is what you just said you're doing, you are getting better value from that. So, of course, transportation is clear. I mean, and many of us businesses are already doing it. If you look at the fixed assets, the fixed cost of the vehicle, because many times when we look at transportation, we're only looking at the cost of fuel. But when you look at the cost of the vehicle, the cost of the maintenance of the vehicle, and the idleness of the vehicle, you have to ask yourself, how many miles in a year I'm not talking about your personal car and status and all of that. I'm talking about things we call pool car and all of that in the business. You really have to take the cost of running your pool cars and see totally if that cost of running pool car, if it justifies the benefit that it brings, or it is, and of course, when that car is in mechanic or that car is in servicing, you don't have access to it. So the question is, what are the alternatives? And many alternatives are out there today. Spotify, Uber, this and that. And and they are even cheaper sometimes. So you really have to check and say, this fixed asset, this car, whether you buy it for 3 million or 5 million, or whatever amount you have bought it for, how many trips will it do? If you divide those trips into how much it costs to hire, so you don't have, again, many times we forget to add the salary of the driver and the healthcare and the pension and the many other things that go into that transportation. We're just looking at fuel. Our cost of transportation includes even the bag of rice we give to the driver and his family at the end of the year. Now, I'm not preaching here to say reduce your staff. I'm saying reduce your cost, keep the benefit, because that your same driver and that your same pool car can still be what you are using, because you are now not having him as a staff, is even the one that has to be paying you for the lease of your vehicle. And you are able to get your money back because, you know, when you use his vehicle, he gets money, and at the end of the month, is able to pay your lease back. So you are getting the service, you are getting your money, the driver is still retained, but is able to now make a living for himself beyond what you can even pay him. And let's be real. Let's truly be real. Whether you pay 50,000, 30,000, 70,000, 80,000 to a driver, it can never be sufficient. Even if you pay 100,000, because that guy has a family, he has children, he has a wife, they go to school. And that's why he's going to have to look for other means. And that's why, you know, probably sometimes the vehicle is broken down and things like that. You know, the point is, you do not need to have this vehicle if you do not need to. If the vehicle is not earning money for you. Now, there are some people who are in business and the vehicle is earning money. Let's say you have maintenance gang and all of that. That's a different thing. But what you call pool car, really not necessary. It's just a cost that is sitting on your books that you can immediately take out and still get all the benefits of that cost. Now, the one about security is a bit interesting, you know, and it's very simple. It depends on the space and all of that, but pooling, security pooling is critical. What is security pooling? Businesses around your neighborhood and all of that come together. Instead of you just, each one of you having to pay for guard, do pooling. And when you do pooling, the cost per person or the cost per business goes down. And that's why, for instance, if you go to a complex that has 40 shops, they might just have 2 or 5 or 10 security guards rather than 40 guards. You don't have the same number of guards per shop. So it might be feasible, it might not be feasible depending on your location. But if it's feasible in your location, talk to other businesses, talk to your neighbors, and say, hey, how can we reduce our own cost by pooling our resources? And do security pooling, and it can help. You know. Now, so these are some of the ways that, of course, the issue with reception is clear, except if your business is in a single location that you are by yourself. You know, clearly you don't have the staff there. Being a receptionist doesn't have to be your staff. You do not have to carry, the receptionist to be there without doubt, but that person doesn't have to be your employee. Because if you go to many institutions worldwide, the best and the brightest institutions, when you get there, you'll find out that that person that is at the reception desk is from a concierge company or is from, you know, so why should Fortune 500 do something and we small business owners do not do it? That's just the question. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you for joining us in this series today. We'll now take questions and answers and we'll wrap up. So if you would like to ask a question or make any comment or observation, please just raise your hand and the host would unmute you to speak. Any comments, please, or questions? Please just indicate and they will unmute you. I don't know if the person from Orange Credit team is trying to speak.
Hello.
Yeah, good afternoon.
Hello, good afternoon, Doc.
Yeah, good afternoon, sir.
My name is Ibrahim Sufyan from Orange Credit team.
All right. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you. We want to start by appreciating Doc for these wonderful interactions. And we believe that this will go a long way in adding value to our company. But we have some challenges. As part of our cost reduction strategy, we normally don't pay salaries. What we do is we pay commissions to our agents because we run an agency network. So we don't know, how do we collaborate with the outsourcing company? Since we don't normally pay salaries, what we do is commissions. We on commission basis.
So when I say salary, I meant anything that has been earned by staff. Whether there are three ways. So in the I don't want to get too deep into this, but you can have what is called piece rate employment, okay? And what you're describing is called piece rate in the law. So if you look at the act that talks about payments of salaries and all of that, this kind of arrangement under the law is called piece rate, okay? And it is still, whether you call it commission or anything, it's still salary. It's just a piece rate. And I'll tell you why. Because it is a rate by number of units. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. So you have a rate that is paid, and that rate can be graduated, it can be absolute, it can be anything. But at the end of the year, you are still under obligation. So there are many things you have to look at. First is, what kind of contract do they have as commissioned agents? Do they have independent contracts? You know, do they have exclusive contracts? In which case, can they sell for other parties, or they can sell only for you? And those things matter. So what can you do, for instance, to make sure that you do not have any exposure in legal areas, is that you can actually honestly benefit from outsourcing that process. So you just get the benefit of those agents working, but you do not have to worry about how they are paid, about the contract that they are holding. Because if you give somebody, let's be clear what the law says, if you give somebody an exclusive contract, in which case you cannot sell for any other person, that's an employment, okay? So whichever way you look at it, because it does not have two masters, okay? So there are a lot of technicalities that are involved. Now, is that what you really want to focus your energy to be dealing with? Is that where you want to build competence, or you want to build competence? I believe you are into credit, is that correct?
Yes.
So I believe probably you want to build competence in the area of credit, loan generation, quality collection, and things like that. So maybe for you, it is best that you consider outsourcing the process of the management of your agents.
Okay.
And when you outsource that process, outsource it end to end. Outsource it from the point of contract management to commission payment. Okay. And when you do that outsourcing, it means that when any government agency comes to you, you're able to show them the contract with the outsourcing company, you know, okay. And you are absolved of every employment related or whatever related, you know, thing to that contract. I mean, my guys can get in touch with you. We offer that service, and we'll be very happy to have further conversation with you on how we can work together. But clearly, you should be looking at something like that.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, where's your location, please?
We're in Jos, Plateau State.
All right, so we have a great guy in Jos. His name is Stephen Ejembi.
Yes.
I would ask him to contact you, and probably
he was in office this morning.
Oh, okay. All right, fine. I think that we can benefit, you know, mutually working together, both organizations.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We have some questions, sir.
All right, please go ahead.
On the group chats, I see some questions.
Okay, let's go to the group chat quickly. Can you read the first one while I'm trying to get there, please?
though it's been answered, but please, what's the coverage of your organization? Are you available in East and Abuja? Though we've answered that, and I see a second question that says also, can your organization support very small SME like startups, organizations just starting business?
Yes, so we work with every size of business because small is definitely going to become big. So nothing is too small in terms of scale. And of course, pricing, because the price for small is different, because the scale is different and all of that. And as the business grows, the value grows, and we grow together. So if there is anything in particular the person who is asking that question wants to know about, Funke, please put the phone number of Tokwe and the rest of the team there so that they can speak to them privately if the person asking that question wants a private conversation.
Okay. All right.
Do we have any other comments or questions, please? Okay. Well, I would like to thank every person that has participated in today's series. Thank you so much for your participation, and we look forward to hearing from you. Should you need further clarification at any point in time, we'll be very happy. And just to be clear, this is really not a sales pitch. It's truly our commitment as a business to helping others grow. And we will continue to do that. But nonetheless, we offer payroll management services, we offer HR outsourcing services, we offer recruitment services. And if you're seeking to reduce your cost in those areas and still get the best quality of service out there, we'll be very happy to talk to you about it. And clearly, it's been proven, even if you go to the Fortune 500 companies, no business, they don't spend time going through all the recruitment process and all of that. They just give it out to agencies that, focus on doing that. And that's how businesses grow. So I invite us to begin to look at the best practices that have been proven and beginning to embrace them within our own business, irrespective of our size, because the practices that we put in today might be what will help us in the future. So let's embrace the new normal, which is here, the interaction of man and machine, and let's see how we can get technology to do a lot more for us. But let's focus on getting to understand those 6 elements that we talked about at the beginning of the cost structure and know the ones that we can easily take out. Thank you so much. Have a blessed day. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Please unmute everyone in case there's any comments.